Game number 4 of this best of 5. Match point for the player spawning in the top right of Overgrowth. The green Terran player, Hantypen. And his opponent down in the bottom left, the blue Protoss. Currently 2-1 up in this best of 5. It is Askaria. Askaria, if able to win this map, will advance on into the best of 7 finals for all of the chance of the glory. Hantypen needing to win this map if he wants to stay in this tournament, wants a shot at that final position, wants to force it to the ace game that all us viewers and casters do love. Early on, no massive signs of trickery or treachery, no signs of any proxy hatches, or proxy hatches? No, of course not, there's no Zerg. No sign of any proxy barracks or proxy gateways or any sneaky stuff like that. Askaria just happily coming down here, adding in that gateway and a simulator. Nice little bit of Sim City, blocking off a lot of paths that specifically Reapers could come on through, but this is normal stuff. Nothing too crazy coming on down. Wait to see when Hantypen takes a gas. He hasn't done so yet, so already varying things up from the first 2 games, where actually Hantypen grabbed that first gas nice and early for game 1 and 2 to get down the Marauder with Concussive Shell. Game number 3 for the Reaper is going to go for that gas now. It's considerably later than we've seen it previously. Not necessarily a problem. It is just quite a bit later than we have seen before. Maybe that Marauder play again, because to be honest, this map is quite nice for it. It's a shorter rush distance, able to get that down. But for now, just the SCV going to go on a little bit of a scouting trip. Askaria still on that 1 gas. Very similar builds to what was done in game number 1 and 3. Game number 2 did switch it up and had the 4 probes and gas early, but opting not to do that this time. There's that tech lab coming on through, so this is likely to be a similar play to what we saw in the first 2 games from Hantypen, using Concussive Shell nice and early, grabbing those Marauders down as soon as possible. There's the second barracks as well, so it does look like a very similar build order. Is Askaria going to realise that this is coming? Does have the Mothership Core already on its way out. There's the second gas, does get scouted by Hantypen, who's got a complete look at everything that's coming on down. Askaria, on the other hand, has opted not to scout. 0 information. No view at all of what's coming, what it's going to be happening. And that means that this could get the element of surprise down. And it's not going to be that same build. Okay, I take this back. I was pretty much convinced it was going to be that Concussive Shell play, but it's not. There is Stim coming on down. A very early Stim timing from Hantypen. That's pretty much as early as you can get Stim down full stop. So this is going to be interesting to see how Askaria is able to deal with that. Quite a few Marines already on their way through. No sign of tech, no sign of expansions from Askaria yet, although the mineral count is starting to bank up pretty substantially, so we may be seeing a Nexus shortly. Askaria just sending forward that probe, not doing anything else as of yet. It's actually going to be going for the robotics facility. So we did see an attempt at some drop play in the previous game. It was quite successful. Otherwise, in game number 2 we saw the attempt at drop play, which did some damage but wasn't able to win the game. There's the natural base from Askaria, and both of these two going to be macroing it up, getting their expansions down and looking to transition into the mid-game. Stim, of course, about half done already. It takes an incredible amount of time to upgrade Stim packs, but once they're there, definitely something you're glad you had. Reactor also coming down on this barracks, and the one stylistic thing I've seen from Hantypen is no big rush up into the tech, focusing instead on the tech lab upgrades, as opposed to looking to get up into a starport and medevacs particularly fast. Scouting probe will be first blood of this game, gets taken down by the 4 Marines in the bunker. A little bit of information though for Askaria already. Doesn't manage to see the natural base, but will see that the bunker had 4 units in it, and therefore, okay, this is probably quite a defensive position. Warpgate tech is nearly finished up, as well as the robotics bay just getting started, so a very greedy play coming down from Askaria, looking to get up into Colossus tech as soon as possible. The factory now on its way, Stim nearly done. And all in all, these two being very passive in the early game so far. That could be about to change though, as the Marauders and Marines edging their way forward. This is a very normal little push out coming from Hantypen. The predominant aim of this is to force the photon overcharge onto the natural base. It has to go down. If it doesn't, then obviously this infantry can deal a lot of damage. It's already been seen by Askaria, who should move into position, but wasting the Mothership Core energy, or using that Mothership Core energy early, is precisely what Hantypen is wanting to do here. Photon Overcharge should come down momentarily. There we go, so already there. Interestingly, the infantry will try and engage a bit longer. Does manage to back out and also baits 2 force fields. That's all of the energy pretty much from that sentry, as well as a lot of the energy on the Mothership Core, in exchange for just 2 lone marines. So not a massive loss in order to get that out, but of course it was resources for energy. So not the bestest trade if it was much more than that, but for 2 marines, no problem at all. The factory is done, the starport nearly finished, as well as that reactor for it, so we should be seeing the switcheroo come down nice and quick. Concussive Shell is also on its way now from Hantypen. I really like that as an upgrade as a whole. Getting that down nice and quick just means that you're able to close out those stalkers a lot simpler. You're able to prevent too much from happening in terms of the mobility and micro potential. Askaria, though, already with that first Colossus out, once the second one hits the field, it becomes very challenging to try and engage up into those Colossi without some Vikings. Remember, it is 2-1 up at the moment for Askaria. And so, match point for Hantypen. If he loses this, he's knocked out of the championship series in the semi-finals and won't have the ability to move on up into those final games. Hantypen now securing the 3rd and 4th gas at his natural base. Also pumping out a second starport, so he's going to get double starports out here, which is something you don't see particularly often. I'm not sure if anything's been seen in terms of tech to get a good read of that. I don't think the Colossus has been spotted. But nonetheless, a couple of Vikings going to be coming on out. So Hantypen getting himself into a very, very nice position here. Waiting now to see if and when we get any moves out from Askaria. Of course, the SCV keeping a good check to make sure whether there is a 3rd base or not coming down. A couple more gateways being added in. This is actually taking us up to what will be 7 gates. So 7 gates plus the 2 Colossi is a very powerful, potent timing. For the moment, there's no Vikings. The first 2 are going to pop out. Probably going to end up at about 3 if another one started very, very quickly before this push comes across. But Askaria, with good vision, sees exactly what's here. Sees a couple of infantry, the first 2 medevacs out on the field, and is hoping to hit a strong timing push. More Vikings on their way out. Has any of this been seen? I don't believe it has. Askaria putting down a lot of proxy pylons. The first Vikings out now on the field. There are in total 2 of them. The 3rd and 4th about to pop on out. Is Askaria going to go before then? Upgrades are 1-0 to 0 in favor of Hantypen. This could be a very, very close engagement. The first Viking can now be seen by Hantypen. The Stalkers could just go for it though, nice and quick. The Stalkers need to pick up Vikings to keep the Colossus alive. Double force fields going to prevent any repairs coming down on that bunker. Hantypen knows he's in a bit of trouble now. Lost a lot of his infantry already. The 2 Colossus at the back are able to stay alive. A force field on the ramp, preventing more reinforcements coming on through. The Vikings being very effective will take down one of those Colossi. The second one taking a lot of damage as well. The Stalkers trying to deal with the Vikings as quickly as possible, but already Hantypen is able to push through. Takes down both those Colossi, but at the cost of 23 SCVs and a lot of infantry. The push, though, is going to be crushed. Hantypen knows that this is now a bit of a rough position for him. Economically speaking, even with the mules, it's going to be tough to fight back from this. But Askaria is also in a tough position. Knows that in terms of the overall units, not too much really sitting on the field. Definitely no sign of any Colossi. The first one only, or the first replacement one, only about 2/3 of the way through. Couple of Stalkers waiting their way around. Will have seen the pickup in the medevacs thanks to this observer. If they're able to take that down, it could be devastating. The incomes right now hugely in favor of Askaria, especially on that gas side, and that's even with the mules. Double drop, one from each side, going to be looking to make some progress. The drop in the natural base going to be successful. The first Colossus is there. The drop into the main is going to sneak on by Askaria's attention. Down in this natural, able to pick off most of this, but loses a sentry in exchange. The Stalkers trying to come over now to deal with this big warp in of units. Going to try and close down more of the distance as well. For the moment, Askaria is able to stop these pushes or these drops from doing too much damage. Resources lost, we can see Askaria has lost more. And that's because of the 2 Colossus and all those units going down. But the workers lost could be the big thing. 23 workers have been killed. Askaria up 47 to 32. Could be a race for a third base, and it looks like Hantypen going to be the one to start that off. Chucking down that third. Askaria, second Colossus. About a third done. Going to be wanting to get that out ASAP. Upgrades are in favor of Hantypen at the moment, although the double forge upgrades will catch up if chrono boosts are used effectively. Both sides not really sitting in their most comfortable spots right now, both hurting in different ways. This is easily going to be going on for a good couple more minutes. Askaria looking to secure up that third base. Is a long way behind the third base of Hantypen's, who is already a good 30 seconds through this, but it's going to get even longer thanks to an SCV blocking the third base getting taken by Askaria. Hantypen scanning just to pick off that observer nice and quickly. Prevents further information coming on through. You're also going to go and scan that third base just to get a good timing and a good look at the army that came on over to try and deal with the SCV blocking. Overall, about an 80-ish second advantage for Hantypen in that third base timing. And Hantypen has done a good job of actually catching up in the worker count once more, down to only a 6 worker difference, which 2 mules will easily make up for. We've also got the push now coming across the map from Hantypen, getting a bit more aggressive. Can it be seen by this observer? It looks like no, it's not going to get spotted. That means that Askaria not in a position to be able to defend this. The army at the natural base, not towards the third, where all these Vikings and infantry are moving on in. The Vikings also have a nice engagement position just above this tower, where they can get a good flank onto the Colossus, where they're not targetable by the Stalkers. Forward now comes this infantry. Going to be taking this down. A cancel force straight away. Hantypen going to keep on moving forward. There's 3 Colossus up against 9 Vikings. The infantry in itself is quite scary. Plus 1 vehicle and ship weapons done as well for Hantypen. So his Vikings going to be hitting even harder if the engagement does come. But it doesn't. Hantypen pulling away. Happy knowing that he's forced to cancel that third. Knowing that he's got his own third up. And to be honest, that's going to be really benefiting him, as he's now up in the worker count by 3. He's got those triple mules to be cooling down, getting an even bigger mineral income nice and fast. Still, if we check around Hantypen, just trying to get a few more units out onto the field. Not quite, or nowhere close to max. Just a smaller supply block as a couple more supply depots getting made. The Ghost Academy coming through, of course, a smart move. You always want to be prepared in case there's any High Templar there. But also, the EMP, just as a whole, is going to be really effective against the majority of the Protoss army. No ghosts out on the field as of yet, though, and Askaria will get vision thanks to that observer being replaced of the army moving out. Should be able to prepare, should be able to get in a position where, if an engagement comes, it will be as favourable as possible. The army just moving on back for the moment. Of course, drops are a big threat. That's why the Stalker's sitting around at the edge of that main. Quick little scan to make sure there aren't any observers over this army. Hantypen wants to catch his opponent off guard. Scans the third base. Could very well just move in and snipe that off fast. The army not in position to defend it from Askaria at the moment. Losing this third again may very well be devastating. I don't think Hantypen will have any trouble forcing the cancel. There it goes. May even look to move in and take the engagement. The upgrades are 2-2 up against 2-1. But Hantypen is being patient for the moment. Chasing down one little probe. Killing it off quickly. Also really pleased to see we do have a nuke in production. If we get some nuke play, that make me very happy, Hantypen, who clearly wants to put on a show. Engagement though coming on down. Askaria knows he's got to go for this. The Colossus at the back, one of which falls, the other's dealing some really good damage, but the Viking count is just so high. The Zealots are able to close up the distance to a lot of this infantry. Probes getting pulled just to try and push this even more in his favor. The Vikings landing, going to be trying to get even more damage down, really turn the tide of this fight. But it was a pretty equal trade. I'd say that the Terran player definitely lost a good amount of stuff, but it was the Colossi going down that will really hurt Askaria. The lack of those Colossi, the lack of the funds to replace them, just means that Hantypen, who's busy mining away with these 3 bases with a good amount of income, just able to resupply so much quicker, needs to ideally try and get another couple of waves of production out, if at all possible. Moving forward for now. This should scare Askaria back, who is long-range mining from this third base, and that's because the main completely mined out of this stage. Hantypen taking a 4th, very far ahead at this stage, already getting the 4th base down. And while the last trade wasn't that cost effective, just having the money in the bank means that he's really forced Askaria into a rough spot. The 3rd for Askaria, gonna fall. Nothing really can be done to save this as the infantry comes across. The Vikings there just in case any Colossi appear. The probes going on down. In comes the infantry, still getting a couple more good shots off. The Zealots closing up the distance. They are 2-2 up against the 3-1 infantry. But there's just so much terror in here at the moment. The Zealots starting to fall rapidly. The infantry still able to stay up. The medevac support, numerous. There's 8 medevacs here. Pushing on forward. Askaria down to just 60 supply compared to the 138. GG is called, and Hantypen is going to level out this series to be 2-2, taking us to the ace game.